Good afternoon, Niner faithful. Welcome back to another episode of the Monday afternoon quarterback, or return of the Mac, as I like to say. Very pleased to have a special guest here with me today. As always, I am Rob Schuh, but Jason Aponte joins me from the Sprint Right Option podcast, a phenomenal show if you haven't seen it. I'm sure that you have. You've either seen his show, you've seen him on with Grant Cohn, or one of the many other YouTube live stream shows that we have access to, or maybe you just follow him like 4,000 plus other people on Twitter. But Jason, how you doing today after that fantastic 49er win against the Vikings on Sunday?
Appreciate you having me here, Rob. And yeah, I mean, it's about to be December, and we're going to be talking about another meaningful football game. I felt like that was the biggest win of the season, simply for reasons we'll get into. But feels good to be talking about this, especially with all the doom and gloom hanging around this team after the Arizona game. Admittedly, a lot of it was my own, especially on a podcast. I was very much on the ledge if I didn't jump off.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. I mean, this season got bleak for a little while, right? I think we all started with reasonably high expectations because this is a talented roster. And when the 49ers did not live up to those expectations, I know, speaking for myself, it was freaking heartbreaking. It really was. So we struggled through a long portion of that season, but you're right. We are talking about relevant football games going into December, and that's a phenomenal thing.
Definitely is. That was such a fun game. A lot of the moments in that game reminded you of 2019, especially when the game started to swing in a different direction and it looked like the 49ers were going to run away with it. Got a little hairy because kickers miss kicks. That's one of my favorite things that happens all the time in
You're
football.
fond of kickers, I gather.
I love kickers. They're my favorite thing in the world. And whenever they make a field goal, another angel gains its wings every time that. So, but yeah, I mean, other than that, there was a lot of moments that felt like 2019. It was a very fun win and a little bit nerve-wracking. But hey, the 49ers got it done, and on to the next week, which is Seattle.
Yes, indeed. So correct me if I'm wrong, but immediately following this show, you are going to be having an episode of your podcast going live on your channel right when you finish up this. Is that a correct statement, sir?
It is a correct statement. I got daddy duties out of the way so I could take care of this this commitment that I laid forth with you. And yeah, I'm going to go knock it out with Andrew. It's a fun time right now. And I think that one thing that I kind of got lost in during the season was, you know, we all clamor for football, and football is very much year round.
Yes.
But we only get a certain amount of weeks of this. So no matter how bad things are going, you kind of have to cherish it because there's going to be that long stretch of time. It's like, man, on Sunday, I wish I was watching football. So that's sort of like the mind frame I got myself back into to knock out a lot of the negative stuff that was in my head about the team. So I'm trying to remember that portion of it. So it's like you only have a certain amount of weeks to go hard. And that's why we're doing it. Yeah,
that is right. Well, fantastic. Anybody who wants to go watch that episode, check out the links down below this video. We got his Twitter handle and we got all the links to go find his fantastic content. Let's get into this show right now. The 49ers have been fighting for every yard in these past few weeks. Kicking it off with our headline topic here, one of the biggest stars of the offense, Elijah Mitchell. In the post-game presser, you heard it. You heard it from Coach Shanahan. You heard it from Jimmy G. You heard it from George Kittle. All describe Eli's ability to get those additional yards. He's getting the tough yards. He's always falling forward. He competes for every yard. He gets hit by the first guy, but he doesn't go down. Just throwing out a couple of stats here to react to. 133 yards on 27 carries with a broken finger. 82 of those yards after contact. What was your impression of Elijah Mitchell coming out of this win?
So I think that everybody kind of got sucked into the whole mini Mostert thing, right? And what I mean by that is even Raheem Mostert had tough yards and he was able to run between the tackles at times. But I think what I'm more impressed with is those tough yards, right? In the Rams game, they didn't really run outside zone. He was in between the tackles, and that screams bell cow, somebody that you trust and who's going to get tough yards. You're usually not where you find crevices. It's usually just 3 or 4. Just keep the thing moving. You know, Elijah Mitchell is fast enough where when you get him outside, he hits those holes and he goes. So he's adding layers to his game. It's a funny thing, Rob. When rookies get reps, they get better, huh?
Imagine that.
It's insane. So, I mean, in the beginning, there was a little bit of concern in terms of, okay, is he not seeing the holes? How is his vision? Is the speed not there for him right now in terms of game speed? But it's all clicking right now. And I think the level of trust Kyle Shanahan is showing 31 touches for a rook. Now, I understand that it is a little bit out of necessity at this point, right? Jeff
Right.
Wilson is still working his way back from the injury, isn't exactly hit the ground running as we thought he would, especially in that Jacksonville game. Trey Sermon, who is now going to be out for a while, obviously did something to somebody, and that's why he's not playing. You lose Raheem Mostert, and then Jermichael Hasty is injured. So I'm not certain that this was the plan, but
Right.
when he's playing this well, it's hard to justify not giving him the ball over and over because he is securing it and he's getting those extra yards and he's icing the game. He helped ice the game, basically. If Robbie Gould makes that kick, there is no need for that last drive. Nobody cares, anything like that. But he helped ice that game. And I think that the identity of this team is we're going to run the ball. You know we're going to run the ball, and you can't do anything to stop it. And Elijah Mitchell right now is the engine of that.
He truly is the engine, and it's like he is the V8 of a 2018 Dodge Demon that's putting out 808 horsepower. I mean, he really is churning. It's impressive what he has been able to do so far. This is his fourth 100-yard game in just 7 starts. And by my research, that trails only Matt Breida, who had 5 total 100-yard games underneath Shanahan in his time with the 49ers. Obviously, it's a pretty balanced number of 100-yard games. You really have had 3-headed monsters in years prior. This seems to be the first year that someone is truly trusted with the entirety of the carries. To your point, though, it feels a bit necessary that even if you didn't trust Elijah, the stable of running backs has been slimmed by injury and forced the 49ers into this position. But what a position to be forced into, right? To have discovered this 6th round gem. I know that you have another favorite among rookie rushing leaders. Got to practice my speech there. But we do have Najee Harris with 708 yards in the one spot over 11 games. Elijah Mitchell coming in second with 693 yards, and Javonte Williams with 568 yards. Now, I have seen your comments on believing that Javonte Williams deserves more carries. Certainly, there's no shortage for Elijah. But what a steal, what a value to have stumbled across this in the 6th round of the draft. It's really just another Bobby Turner miracle in my book.
Absolutely. And again, I'm glad that you brought that up because now I can verbalize what, tweets have a certain character limit and
That's
everything
right.
as well, too. And I thought I was pretty clear in the fact that I was saying, I love what Elijah Mitchell is doing. I think what he's doing is great. But what I was talking about with Javonte Williams is a guy who leads the league in broken tackles. He splits with Melvin Gordon right now. And he's played in more games than Elijah Mitchell, which is why throwing up that number of yards in many games as Javonte Williams it doesn't tell the story, right? And that's why, look, no slight at Elijah Mitchell. This is the first time that there has ever been a bell cow in this Kyle Shanahan offense.
Right.
It is never. That's why when somebody brought up, well, that's why there's no. Why if it's like that and the system is so good, why is there no 1,000-yard rusher? That's because there's 5 guys that carry the ball. Like literally in 2019, Tevin Coleman had a game where he had 5 touchdowns. Raheem Mostert gets hot, he takes it over at the end of the season, and so on and so forth. So with Javonte, what I'm looking at is similar yards per carry, 20 less touches, 20 more broken tackles, and the highest broken tackle, missed tackle rate in the league. And for the people that say, well, if he was better, he would take it over. Well, the Denver Broncos are paying Melvin Gordon, which I think was ridiculous. You don't give running backs a second contract. That's ridiculous. They are paying Melvin Gordon. So have him sit on the bench and give it to Javonte Williams is just a gross allocation of money. So, and one more thing to Melvin Gordon's credit, he's actually playing very well this season. And
He
that's
is a
another
decent
thing.
running back. Yes.
Yeah, he's playing well. Like and he's playing well enough to hold off Javonte Williams. So look, again, none of that was there to disparage Elijah Mitchell. It's just, I think what we get carried away with the rookie thing is the same people that are telling you right now that Mac Jones is the best rookie quarterback he is right now. He is right now, but there are going to be other people that will throw their hat into that ring. We're going to find out what Trevor Lawrence is next year. We're going to find out what Justin Fields is. It's just Javonte Williams shows me too many things right now while he's in a split that if he was ever given 25, 30 touches like he was Elijah Mitchell, you would see similar, if not better production, just because that man is a huge man and he's a beast. So, I mean, that was it. That's my piece on that. So, again,
I appreciate
just my opinion.
And I think that it's important for people, Twitter is not a very reasonable space. People don't act reasonably when they're on that website for whatever reason, or app, however you access it. Showing my age there with the website reference. But so, yeah, it is just saying one guy is good is not necessarily a slight against the other one. Because to your point, I mean, Elijah Mitchell is absolutely no slouch. He's facing 8-man boxes on yesterday's game. 60% of his carries yesterday were into that 8-man box. So to me, I just love the fact, because Kyle had said before that, well, when you're facing that 6-man front, you can't necessarily run into it because you're going to face a lot of 3rd and 12s. But it was following a game that on a first down into a 6-man front, they ran Elijah Mitchell and they gained 9 yards, right? So he has that ability to break tackles. I think he's a very special player and just one hell of a value that the Niners got there.
Absolutely.
All right. We got a couple of super chats in here, so I need to get over to those to say hello to those in the comments. Dizza Scraps coming in. Franchise tag Debo until he can be healthy all year. Let me say something on this one first, and then get your thoughts on it as well, Jason. This to me falls into the same category, and the only reason I have a prepared thought on it is there was a similar comment in the bottom of one of my YouTube videos that I was responding to. I see this pretty similarly to George Kittle. I'm very happy that the San Francisco 49ers paid George Kittle. I would not want to trade him from this team. I am happy with his contract because of the simple fact that I believe someone like Debo, someone like George Kittle, when they're healthy, they are so special that it's worth the several games a year that you pretty much know you're going to miss because of their very physical type of play. And with Debo in particular this season, the amount of use he's getting, I mean, anybody, human body is going to break down at some point from overuse. People should just be glad that it wasn't a more serious injury. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of pushback on the people that say, well, Shanahan has to stop using him as a running back. He's wearing him down. Honestly, he went down before he even got hit. So what if he was running a route and that groin, flared up? Would you have been fine with that? It's the same thing. So again, I don't knock the sentiment. Okay, I don't knock the sentiment, right? Because you want Deebo Samuel to be healthy all season, but I don't think that it had anything to do with him being a running back at that point. Because if he pulls that groin, or if it pulls when he's running a route, would you be happier with that? It is what it is. And the other thing is, I'm a firm believer of finding a way to get the ball in your playmaker's hands no matter how. And that's it. And there should be no more discussion about that, whether it's in the backfield, whether it's in a tunnel screen, whether it's a wide receiver route. It doesn't matter. Get him the ball, however, and if he's effective doing it that way, why wouldn't you do that? So I have a little bit of pushback in terms of, man, he's using him as a running back. He got him hurt. No, he just went down before he got hit. It wasn't he got hit and then he got hurt. He didn't get hit, then hurt.
That's
he was
right.
Already, so I don't know.
The replay was very clear that he was already easing himself back when he got hit. And it wasn't actually a very firm hit because of that, because he was already going down on his own. Yeah, I actually, I should say, Dizza, that the franchise tag is a good tool, and it may have to be used in this case because Debo's people might hold out for, gargantuan money. So not to say that the franchise tag isn't a viable option. It absolutely is, but I do think that I'm willing to pay Debo. I'm glad we paid Kittle. This one's just a little bit. Just a little bit of love here from 49ers First Takes. Aaron, appreciate that. Aponte and Schuh, yes, please. Thank you. Real
quick, Rob. I don't know if they can. I don't know if they can franchise tag him if they're gonna have to do that with Mitch Wisnowski. You know how this team loves to use their franchise tag on kickers before they have to pay them and stuff.
Man.
So,
it's a fair point. You got to lock down Mitch.
Yeah.
He's a core tackler on special teams. He did miss the tackle. That may have cost him the franchise tag this year.
That's it.
That missed tackle might be it, Jason.
That's it. You have to allocate your franchise tag in the right ways, and we know that the 49ers have done that over and over. So if you did it with Robbie Gould, it's time to do it with Mitch and make sure you don't lose out on that 4th round highlight punter.
Get that allocation of resources correct, 49ers. All right, Joe Mama in the house. Good evening, gents. Big supporter of both of you. Great content. Thank you. How do you guys view the Seahawks if they win or lose tonight? End of an era if they lose? I am really looking forward to this game because, quite honestly, other than seeing some Seahawks action here or there, other than the game they played against the 49ers, I'm not entirely clear what is going on in Seattle. I will be there next week. I'm up in Portland, Oregon. Jason, I know you're back east. So for me, it's a quick 3-hour drive, and it's a must-go-to game every year because it's easy, right? So I get there. But I don't know what to make of it. I side with George Kittle in that regardless of what state they're in, regardless of whether they win or lose tonight, this is a divisional game. Divisional games are always tough because the teams know each other so damn well. So I would predict, even if Seattle looks ugly tonight against a poor Washington football team, that it'll be a close matchup and a nail-biter next week.
You know it will be. It's always that. It is always that. And it does. And you're right. It doesn't matter what state they're in. Like, they could lose 6 straight games and then all of a sudden play their best game against the 49ers. I think that's the fear, right? What gets me nervous is I understand that they haven't been playing well. And my thoughts of what's going on right now is that, what's happening now with Russell Wilson doesn't have so much to do with the finger injury as it does a reoccurring thing that's been happening since last season. Let me take you back to last year. First half of the season on fire, blowing things up, obviously. Him, DK, Lockett, right? They look unstoppable.
Let Russ cook.
Right. And then it starts to taper off. I don't know what it is about Russell Wilson, but when I'm able to dive into their all-22, there are throws that are right there in front of him. He just does not see. He just wants to throw that moon ball. He wants to get out of the pocket and throw that moon ball. He doesn't go through progressions. And I think that because of how well he started out of the gate and that big reputation around Russ, a lot of people don't discuss this right now. And you would think they move from what's the guy's name? Brian Schottenheimer. They moved away from Schottenheimer to the pass game coordinator of the Rams. And you think, oh, wow, they're getting this McVay-like offense. It's going to open things up. It just isn't clicking, and there's something wrong. It's either Russ is disinterested or he is just not progressing in terms of looking through his progressions because there are so many open throws on the field, but he just wants to chuck that thing up to Lockett or Metcalf and see if they come down with it. And it's really baffling. I really don't know. So it's more that. But at the same time, they could come out and get washed in this game and play their best game against the 49ers next week. So I would not put it past them, but I just have a hard time believing that they'll be this bad for this long. Like, I can't see them losing 5 straight games. I can't
either. There's too much talent there. It's the same way I felt about us when we were struggling. There's too much talent there. Coaching staff is too good. Russell Wilson is too damn good. Although that is an interesting take. I hadn't seen that before as a trend, but he does throw a beautiful rainbow. I mean, that freaking ball, maybe that's why he wants to throw it so often, is because it's so damn pretty when he does it. All right, let's get into our second topic here. This is the way. The 49ers seem to struggle with who they were early in the season, right? Just didn't have that identity. And it's fair to wonder if it could have been the loss of Mostert and the less than stellar early returns from our 3rd-round pick in Trey Sermon, that you just didn't have the horses in the stable. Now, through the combination of Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson Jr., and obviously Deebo Samuel, they seem to have found and, more importantly, held onto their identity as a run-first team. In the last 3 games versus the Rams, 44 carries, 156 yards. At Jacksonville, 42 carries, 171 yards. Versus Minnesota, 39 carries, 208 yards. Jason, just how dominant do you view the 49ers run game?
It's super dominant. Again, it's about, we're going to run it. I'm going to run it. You know it. Stop me. And I think that's the source of 49er fans' frustration, because this was supposed to be the plan from week 1. And this is what had 49er fans so bullish on this team, even if those people didn't want Jimmy Garoppolo to be starting, whatever, whole other discussion right now. But the plan was always to do this. And I think that a lot of 49er fans are frustrated with, well, what took you so long to get back to this, right? And it could have happened in many games, but obviously game script in certain games, down a distance, you really can't do that at times. That's sort of the source of the frustration with Kyle Shanahan for the people who are frustrated with him right now. Obviously, right now there's not much to say because he's gotten back to basics and he's doing exactly what everybody wanted him to do. But it's so dominant. It is literally dominating time of possession, doing what they want to do, and there's something about mentally, right? You are play after play on defense. You cannot stop the run, cannot stop the run, cannot stop the run. And it's happening all game. You break and you are so defeated.
Yes.
And that's really what the 49ers should have been doing from week one. And that's what we all thought that they would be doing. And that is the mental aspect, I think, is the part that's being overlooked. Because defenses know what's coming. It is nothing more disheartening than to know exactly what's coming. It's like when you're playing Madden against your little brother, right? I'm going to run the ball right here to the right. Come stop me. And you can't. And you can't. And you continue to do it. You continue to do it. And your little brother chucks the controller and runs off and cries to mom. That's what the 49ers are doing to teams right now. And I think that the psychological aspect is kind of being lost there.
You hit on a couple of things, and that psychological aspect is absolutely one of them for me. It is so disheartening. You really are breaking teams when you're able to do that. You are really breaking defenses. You see it come out when they get upset and throw the punches, right? That is the human spirit breaking because they are being tormented by the fact that they cannot stop the 49ers physically. And then the other point that for me was one I tried to drive home as we were struggling, one that I hoped Kyle Shanahan was watching my live stream, as you assume he would be, and would pick up on it, which is if you have an identity, if your identity is running the football, then you run the damn ball and you force teams to stop you. You don't allow defenses to dictate to you how you attack them. You dictate the terms of the battle. They have to come out on the battlefield and prove they can stop you before you're willing to give up on it. Let me take a slightly different angle on this one and get your take on it. Did the game Sunday show you that the 49ers can win in games where things don't immediately break their way? I know that the Vikings have this stat that they have led by 7+ points in every single game this season, and obviously they're 5-6. So you could say it's Minnesota, but I think it's a fair question whether it really was San Francisco showing us that it doesn't have to be purely complementary football, that they are capable of sticking with the run and fighting back into games. How do you see it?
That's exactly my biggest takeaway and what I was so impressed with, right? Obviously, the Rams game goes according to plan, like even better than they planned it. The same thing with the Jacksonville Jaguars game. That's like, it couldn't have gone any better with the way they scripted it. Now, You took a punch and you punched back. And things are not going to be like that every week in this league. And that was what I walked away impressed with. Not only did you stick to your guns, you showed a bunch of resolve, and you swung that game the other way. Once they scored before the half, score right after the half, they get the Aziz interception right after that, they score again. That is the mark of a team that knows what they're doing, and they can take a punch and punch back. That's what I was really, really, really impressed with, because things are not going to go your way, and it's never going to be the same. You can have a 2 or 3 game stretch where you dominate teams. That's fine. But what do you do? The mark of a good team is, what do you do when the unexpected is thrown at you? When you're down 14-7, not expecting that. How do you bounce back from that? When things aren't going your way, can you collect yourself after the Jimmy Garoppolo interception? Kyle Shanahan goes over and he says a bunch of curse words, I'm sure, at Jimmy Garoppolo. It worked, and it went the other way, right? So that's what I was impressed with. Good teams find different ways to win games, and they find ways to win games when things are not perfect.
Amen to that. Everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Good teams find a way to win despite that fact. Did it seem to you, because I had this thought, and I tweeted it out, and I thought I was very clever in doing so, but I noticed that it did seem Kyle was getting a little bit into his Shanahan thought process where he may have been out-coaching himself a little bit, right? It was one early run and then a lot of passes in a row. But then Jimmy threw the pick, and it seemed like Kyle was like, oh, shit, I should be running the ball. And then he got right back to it. That was sort of my takeaway from that little turnover.
Yeah, one more thing too about the whole Kyle Shanahan not running the ball. The best play callers and coaches in the world go through funks, and I
Hmm.
keep and I can cite
They are
you a
human.
right, and I could cite you a specific situation that I remember. Andy Reid, one of the best play designers, play callers in the league, right?
That's a
Kare-
fact.
Kareem Hunt's first season, they are running the ball, running the ball, running the ball. Kareem Hunt is running like a madman his rookie year. Then all of a sudden, the offense starts to stall out, right? So guess what he did? He turned his play calling over to, you guys might be familiar with this name, A1 Matt Nagy. And Matt Nagy got that offense rolling again. I'm not talking that Kyle Shanahan should pass off the play calling, but your favorite play designer, play caller, whoever it is, they get into funks. It happens. You start to outsmart yourself. You start to get away from the basics. So that's the point that I even when I was as negative as possible about Kyle Shanahan, right?
Right.
Because I was criticizing him. You know what it is. Only stands over here, but
Yep.
I had cited specific examples of play callers who they go through funks and they work their way through it. And right now, Kyle Shanahan is getting back to basics, but that one stuck out in my mind because that was a high-powered offense for a few weeks, and then it stalls out with Alex Smith, obviously a quarterback. And then when Matt Nagy takes over, it gets right back. Now, I'm not saying that he needs to switch. I'm just saying that your favorite play caller designers, they get into funks, and it happens. It happens all over the league. This is the National Football League.
That is a great example and a powerful reminder to fans that it can happen to the greatest. To quote one of my viewers, Kyle is back in his bag like there's chips at the bottom. It is fantastic. All right, we got another super chat in here that we need to get to, and then we'll get back into the content. But Sean Dunn coming in, great win versus the Vikings. More impressive would be taking out Seattle this week and ending their era. Show we're legit and pound them without Fred or Debo. Arizona did. I cannot agree more wholeheartedly in the message around the Seahawks, that if we are able to take out the Seahawks, it will feel somehow even sweeter than a game that is maybe the most important of the 49ers season that just occurred on Sunday. But in particular, for me, I have some emotional attachment to going into Seattle. I've been to several games there. I'd say 6 or 7 at this point. But the one that sticks out is the NFC Championship game that I was at and getting peanuts thrown at the back of my head. I was in a nice section. I had scored one single seat to go out. I had gone to Carolina, come back, found one seat, went to that game, had peanuts tossed at the back, and then the Bowman injury. I mean, it was heartbreaking. So every victory in that stadium, Jason, I cannot tell you how high I leave the stadium. Cloud 9 is not enough. I'm on cloud 54. It is fantastic when we beat Seattle.
And here's the thing. No matter where this team is, the Seattle Seahawks are the boogeyman. They're they're under the 49ers bed. They're the boogeyman in the
Big
closet.
brother. Yep.
And for some reason, no matter how many big wins there are, there is something to the idea of slaying this monster. And if not only now it just coincides with them sliding right now, because this all does feel like the end of an era right now. Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson might not be here next year, and that's a very strong possibility. That's not someone just throwing anything out into the ether. This is actually something that can happen. That's
real, yeah.
But as you just said, beating the Vikings is one thing, but there's something to if the 49ers go into Seattle and they effectively win this game and they walk out with the victory, it almost feels like, okay, now nobody can stop us right now at this point, because they are just that last team. They are always like that final boss, that last team that you always have to slay, because 2019, when they won that game with the Dre Greenlaw stop, that like literally, I remember being in a 49ers bar in New Jersey, and I remember just everybody celebrating, and I remember just exhaling and putting my hands on my knees because I had seen this movie before. I've seen it so many times and had my heart ripped out. I didn't even want to celebrate. My phone was ringing. People were texting me. I just was on like hands on knees, like breathing, like thank God. And that's what this would feel like too. It would feel like slaying the beast. Obviously, it's double sweet because it feels like effectively ending an era. But at the same time, this is always the litmus test for this team in any season. Can you beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle? Exercise those demons, and then that little extra bonus is this might be effectively ending the Pete Carroll Russell Wilson era.
Wouldn't that be sweet? Yes, indeed. George Yu coming in here, no sleeping on Seattle. That is still Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. Yes, regardless of any injuries that they may be suffering, it's hard to be down your starting running back when you are a team that, for whatever reason, not for whatever reason. I support the fact that they like to run the ball because I love the fact that the 49ers have a run-first identity. But with Russell Wilson as my quarterback, I might be more on the side of letting him cook a bit, at least having an offense that capitalizes on his strengths. Not to say that they haven't in years past, but what I'm saying here in this long-winded spinoff is, yes, you have to take him seriously. For everything that we've just said, you have to take him seriously.
And this team should have learned this lesson already. And especially when it comes to Seattle, no sitting around. Oh, okay, this team is missing this guy. No. And especially not this team, not Seattle. Doesn't matter how they're playing. You know that this game is going to be like that. There is no overlooking any sort of team at this point. Not Atlanta, not Houston, not Seattle. Nobody, especially considering playing the Eagles down to the wire. The Lions almost coming back and winning that game. Overlooking Colt McCoy in Arizona, I felt a little bit. Either they were out schemed and they kind of just, I felt like they were like, hey, man, none of these guys are going to be here. We should be able to roll in this one. And when you start to get behind, then it kind of just snowballs. So in this league, you can't take anybody. And for some reason, this 2021 season is the most unpredictable season I've ever seen in my life.
It's wild.
I have no idea what to think of anything. The Tennessee Titans effectively eviscerate the Chiefs, the Bills, lose to the Jets. They whip the Rams. The Jets lose to the Bengals lose to the Jets. Like it's so strange. I can't put my finger on anything this season. That's what makes getting into the tournament the ultimate goal for the 49ers, right? That's why, obviously everybody wants a Super Bowl run, but you can't hate from outside of the club. You have to get in the club first, and then you can talk about that, and it's all about who's the hottest.
That's right. That is right. You have to be in the club to dance. I think that works. All right, this is a quick one here. Getting into rating Azeez. Azeez Al-Shaair quietly having a great season, maybe not so quietly after his performance on Sunday. In the presser yesterday, he stated that he went back to doing what got him into the NFL. And honestly, what that reminds me of is it sounds like Fred Warner to me. I believe I have heard him use those exact words. And he is such a stoic leader that I would anticipate he shared that with Al-Shaair. But it is so true. You were selected for what you do well, not trying to live up to what some other player may do. And you need to focus on your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. He seems to be doing that with another dominant performance on Sunday. Here are his numbers from the game. 8 total tackles, a team high. 5 run stops, 1 pass defense, 1 interception, and 1 fumble recovery. I wish I had picked him up in my IDP position for fantasy football. Do you expect this level of play from Azeez going forward?
I do, because the trends are too good. And there was one game in particular that everybody wants to point out in terms of saying, okay, well, he wasn't good in this game. Well, that Arizona game, the entire defense wasn't good.
Right.
And for me, tactically, they were just outmanaged. They knew exactly where to attack with screen passes, putting Hufanga in binds with having to cover over the top. Credit Cliff Kingsbury, he did a great job there. But outside of that, Azeez Al-Shaair, I was lucky enough to be at training camp this season. And there was something when I was there for those 2 weeks that I kept remarking to Jordan Elliott. Shout out to Splash Cousin, who was there. I was there with
Splash Cousin. We've had him on the program.
It's an amazing guy right there, one of the best football minds out there. And we kept looking at each other like, man, Azeez Al-Shaair looks different. And it's translated right over into the season. And what you see, he's so good in the run game. He's identifying, getting downhill. I'm just so happy for the kid. He looked like a different player going into the season, and it's translated right over. Now, that's kind of why, I took a lot of heat for Dre Greenlaw returning and everyone saying, well, he's not getting his job back. You got to slow down a little bit. Azeez Al-Shaair actually has been playing well enough where you can fit all 3 of those linebackers on there. You just take K'Wan Williams off the field, but there's no way that right now Dre Greenlaw goes right on the field in front of Azeez Al-Shaair the way he's been playing. No way. And unfortunately, he's injured. But yeah, I mean, that's just where I was at with it.
Yeah, you got to get back up to speed. Once you have earned the right for that playing time, I mean, I get that people want to say that you don't lose your spot to injury, but that's just a fairy tale in the NFL. People lose their spot to injury all the time. And when the player who fills in is playing really well, sometimes you just can't take that away. And he does bring a physical element that I just think was missing from this defense and is much needed. Do you see it as a clear-cut, easy fill in for him if Fred indeed does miss? It looks like at least 1 week, but maybe 2.
I don't know about like, it's so hard to say that Azeez Al-Shaair can fill in right for Fred Warner. I mean, he's certainly up to the task because he's a thumper. He's good at identifying his run gaps, staying in his run gaps. You know, the one thing that you can point out is that he misses a few tackles here and there. Okay, that's fine. You know, not everybody's perfect. And obviously, we know for a fact that Dre Greenlaw, former safety, is probably better in man coverage than Azeez Al-Shaair is. But I would argue that he's better than him in zone coverage. And I'm going to point to the interception. I posted the play on Twitter. What happened was he immediately read eyes on Kirk Cousins, and he got right in front of Adam Thielen, which was the underneath linebacker. That sounds like a quarterback that we know, not seeing an underneath linebacker. But anyway, he made the play. Sorry, I couldn't resist. He made the play. It's
okay. Those shots are too easy not to take.
Right. He made the play, and he just looks like a player who is building confidence week after week, and he's going to have a lot on his plate this week. So I wouldn't say that it's like an easy fill-in because you can't replace what Fred Warner does, even if people are arguing that he's not having as good a season. And I think Fred would tell you the same thing. But I feel much more at ease with Azeez in there, at least at this point. Didn't mean to do that. But I think that it won't be as stark of a missing just because of how well he's been playing.
Yeah, I think people underestimate just how difficult it is to get the entire defense into position, to be the quarterback of the defense, to be the one making the calls, to have all that going on. And, oh, by the way, you still need to play at an elite level. And to the point of not having a fantastic season, it really is a solid season. I think people were expecting spectacular because he got paid a huge bag of money. But really, in my mind, all that it's missing are the big splash plays. And part of that is not getting the opportunities I thought he was going to get in rushing the passer. But I digress there. If Fred is out, we are thin at the position, right? Marcel Harris is going through the concussion protocol, but you would think he would clear. But Dre is now out and would seem will miss some time. Fred will miss some time. So you've got Azeez Al-Shaair and then Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles. I would think this week they will bring Tyrell Adams, who's on the practice squad, who's a 5-year NFL vet, but a practice squad player, that we might expect to see a linebacker signing this week to bring somebody new onto the practice squad just for a little bit of depth there. Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, it does. And I think that really what this opens the door for is more Talanoa Hufanga. And that means that you will see Tart, you will see Ward deep, and you will see Hufanga closer to the line of scrimmage doing the things that are in his position. They put him in positions to win when he's at the line of scrimmage. Yes. And they don't have him in there diagnosing coverages. That's obviously something he needs to work on right now. You leave that to the two veterans, but you allow him to get downfield and also pass break up on those crossers. I think that he's going to be a solid fit right in there, and he's going to be able to be on the field as much as they've been trying to push him on there. So I think you're going to see Hufanga a little bit more in that little hybrid safety linebacker role, because it does give them flexibility for him to be able to cover somebody and also get downhill while blitzing him as well too. So I would expect a little bit more Hufanga in this game, just especially in that linebacker role.
That's a great call out. That had not occurred to me, dude. And yes, that makes perfect sense. I mean, that is a natural fit for him. Sorry, that anytime I can sneak in a Big Lebowski reference, nice. I do. but yes, I mean, it just that makes perfect sense. It's a guy that you want on the field more and more, but you can't sacrifice Jaquiski Tart in the backfield, in the defensive backfield, because of his veteran presence and savvy that he brings, the ability to diagnose and execute, but getting him on the field, that is a critical observation. All right, getting back into a super chat before our next topic. Dizza scraps back in. Thank you, Dizza. Trey isn't ready for Kyle, or Kyle not ready for Trey. What do you think about that one, Jason? I think I'll go first on this one, just to say that I believe Kyle Shanahan wants to win games at all costs. I think that is his top priority in the NFL. Your lifespan in the NFL, even if your last name is Shanahan, is very short if you do not produce. Kyle has struggled. I don't think it's wrong to criticize him for that. I believe he would be feeling pressure to perform this season. So when I don't see Trey enough, and when I don't get the snaps that I want to see for Trey, because I'm calling for that every week, I think that you've got to work him in to get him some experience. To your point earlier, that rookies tend to get better when they play. But the simple fact that they haven't, and the one game he did play was such an atrocious game plan, leads me to believe that he isn't quite ready. I just have to take that on faith.
I think that the one thing that Kyle Shanahan has said the entire time that he has continued to follow through with was Jimmy gives us the best chance to win. And unless we're mathematically eliminated, I'm not just going to throw him out there for no reason.
Right.
Now, a lot of people cite, okay, well, if that's the case, then why on a gotta have it play in in the Green Bay game right before the half on a 4th and 1, literally the last play of the half? Do you have him in there? Why can't you do that later on? Okay, I get all that. Agree with it or not? And look, I'll be upfront. I was one of those people that said, hey, man, rip the Band-Aid off and just go with Trey. Like, just go for it, and you take your lumps, right? Like, but you're absolutely right. I think there is a lot of pressure in the background of, well, man, you can't just have a 5th losing season. And I think this was the plan the entire time for it to just be Jimmy. And right now, the only thing you can't argue with the team winning games right now. If Jimmy Garoppolo was out there falling flat on his face and not getting and Trey wasn't getting any time and they were losing games, I could hear it. But right now, this team has won 4 out of 5, three straight, and Jimmy Garoppolo isn't falling flat on his face at this point. He is operating the offense efficiently, and they're winning games. I don't think you can ask for any more. And again, the only thing that I'm taking Kyle Shanahan at his word is that Trey Lance won't be playing unless they are absolutely mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And for right now, from the way things are looking, it doesn't look like that's going to be anytime soon. So, I mean, I guess that's it. You could agree or not. It's just, I think that's just what it is.
And thank the sweet baby Jesus for that, because we have relevant football. That is all that I want. All that I want for Christmas. That and my 2 front teeth. So our next topic here, just how special is Deebo Samuel's freaking season? Deebo has now hit 1,000 yards receiving on the year with 6 games to play. You could say he's going to miss 1 or 2, and that's disappointing. You could see the hurt in his face that he's not going to get to complete this magical season, statistically speaking, the way he might want to. He has 5 rushing touchdowns and 5 receiving touchdowns. Only 2 other players have accomplished that feat: Marshall Faulk and Roger Craig. The famous saying, tell me who else is on that list, and I'll tell you how impressive that list is. That's a pretty damn impressive list. When your name is next to those 2 dudes, that's spectacular. Let me take a moment to say Roger Craig should also be a Hall of Famer in that scenario. It is atrocious to me that he is not. I have a proud hat, that my favorite hat I was wearing in the New Orleans Super Bowl, but I ran into Roger Craig. I had him sign that thing, and now it sits on a shelf because that's where it belongs, because Roger Craig was great.
Wow.
But just how dominant has Deebo been? What has been your impression of this Cinderella season for Deebo?
Again, I hate to keep going back to this, but training camp, he looked different. And he was the best player on the field every single day. Whenever he lined up with anybody, they got beat, and it didn't matter. And it seemed like he had heard everything. Extension of the run game. Can't run routes downfield. Can't win in short area routes and things like that. He heard all of those things, like the Michael Jordan meme, and I took that personally.
Yes.
And he went and he played with a chip on his shoulder. What impresses me the most is how he's getting the ball and how it's going to go to him, and there's still nothing you can do to stop it. Percy Harvin and Cordell Patterson walked so Deebo Samuel can run. And, I mean, it's the tunnel screen. Listen, I was in Chicago. 3rd and 20. Literally a tunnel screen to Deebo Samuel, which is a play that's just designed for you to get a few yards and get some breathing room for fourth round phenom Mitch Wisnowski to nuke
MVP
one of his
Mitch Wisnowski, please.
One of his 800-yard punts because he has the greatest leg of all time.
Yes.
It's supposed to just be a play to get you some breathing room, and he almost takes it to the house. And that right now feels like the singular play of the season that not only saved the season and gave the 49ers a lifeline, kind of saved Jimmy Garoppolo's job. I was in Chicago, and this is no speculation. Trey Lance was warming up out of the halftime. He was warming up. That's not a joke. And they didn't put the cameras on it. It was happening. We were looking right at it. And, obviously people are going to say whatever was being said, but Deebo Samuel is so vital, important, right? And like these yards that he's getting, they're handoffs, they're throws behind the line. They're not even necessarily anything downfield. He is destroying defenses in every way imaginable. I can't remember a 49ers player being this special. And my two favorite players in the world, Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, they never dominated this way out of the backfield on jet sweeps, on just straight up tunnel screens and things like that. So you're watching a special player, and this season has been a joy. And I've just been taking it all in. Right, 2014 was the last time the 49ers had a 1,000-yard receiver. That was Quan Bolden, person that he's frequently comp to frequently. But I mean, he's a football player. There are guys that are good route runners. There are guys that are good running backs. Deebo Samuel is a football player. Don't call him a wide receiver. Don't call him a running back. Call him an offensive weapon. And please discuss this man in the MVP talks, just because if you took Deebo Samuel away from this team, where on earth would they be right now? And I think that is the definition of most valuable, even if it's a quarterback award.
It is such a shame that award is so heavily skewed towards the quarterback position, because you said it. Where would the 49ers be without Deebo Samuel? He is, I mean, when he came to this team, those thighs, the Grant said it, so I'll quote Grant, so it's not me saying it, that badonkadonk. I mean, he has powerful legs. That man can run through people. He can take souls on the way through. No defensive back wants a piece of that. And now with undersized linebackers, no linebacker wants a piece of that. He is so great at getting around the edge. He is deceptively fast, great short area quickness. And it just is demoralizing to have a wide receiver doing this to you in the way that a running back would, and then some, right? I think the 49ers have done the right thing in just getting him the ball. It doesn't matter how you do it. He is good enough that he can handle the carries. He can handle the catches. Is his current injury potentially a bit of overuse? Yes. Was that overuse necessary to get the 49ers to where they are right now? Hell yes, it was. And if you lose him for a couple of weeks here, then the rest of the team has to step up. And I will say this before we transition to sort of a 1A to this. Does he deserve the bag of cash? Should the Niners pay him? I say absolutely. Pay that man his money. That is my take on it. So
I love Rounders.
Yes, indeed. Another movie that I quote endlessly. Who can take on the very tough task of attempting to fill in for the chain snatcher? Obviously, he's going to miss this week against Seattle. Not obviously. It is trending that direction. And I would say that the 49ers would be wise to sit him regardless of what happens this week. He is too important to risk re-injuring. So to me, he's out this week, maybe 2 weeks. You can't possibly lean more on Elijah Mitchell, right? He is already one of your crutches. Deebo was the other. Who do you see as the most likely player to step in there and take some of that weight?
It's a good thing that Brandon Ayuk has ascended back to the person that we believed he would be in week one, because it's going to have to be him, I believe. And it's going to have to be George Kittle. I mean, listen, I understand what George Kittle brings, but he needs more targets and he needs to get involved more. You need to figure out ways to do the same things that you do for Deebo Samuel. If that's a throw right behind the line and he has to run through guys, you do it. This is all hands on deck right here, but it has to be Brandon Ayuk, I think, at this point. Right now, that secondary is where you want to attack them, right? You attack them there. Condre Diggs is a very good player in their secondary, but as far as corners go, they didn't want to keep Ahkello Witherspoon. They thought what they had was better than him, and he went on to Pittsburgh, and that's where you beat them. And Brandon Ayuk is ascending at the right time. So I don't want to say it's a good thing that this injury happened at the right time like this. Like, I don't want to say that, because it's never a good time for somebody to get injured.
No.
But right now, Brandon Ayuk is playing like that guy that was here last year who got all the attention from all number one cornerbacks and still was able to do his thing. And I think that this is coinciding right now. So it's got to be a big Brandon Ayuk game this week, coinciding with the fact that George Kittle needs to have more than 1 catch and 13 yards in a game. I think we can all agree on that.
I think we can, and we can agree loudly on that fact. George Kittle is the obvious choice for me as far as a significant increase in touches, and you're manufacturing ways to get him the ball, just as you are with Debo, because he is, again, a physical specimen of a man that is capable of doing things other people on the field are not. I will tag on to what you said. There's never a good time for an injury. Anytime there's an injury, even to an opposing player. I was saddened for Dalvin Cook. I always am. I take it very seriously that these are human beings, and there's never a good time for it. But let's be honest that if the 49ers want to be a competitive team in the playoffs, they need more balance to their offense. If you get into the playoffs, teams have more time to prepare for you, more time to game plan for you. It's easier to eliminate one weapon than it is multiple weapons. So this is an opportunity to get Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle on a track where when Debo comes back, this offense is high flying at that point.
Yeah.
All right, we got a couple.
One more thing.
Ahead.
I'm sorry. I've been maintaining that this offense has another gear that they haven't hit yet, in terms of a little bit more explosive plays off of play action, things like that. So there is one more level that this offense needs to get to, because again, we talked about it earlier. Games are not going to go the same way that you always think they are. There's going to be games where you're going to have to throw the ball more, and you're going to have to hit some explosive plays because people are going to choke off all that middle of the field stuff, all of those quick throws that you want to get to. So there is one more gear in this offense that, whether that's off of play action or just straight dropbacks for Jimmy Garoppolo, there has to be a little bit more to this, because in the playoffs, running is the old school way of hey, that travels. It travels in the cold. It travels when you go to other places to play. But there is still one more gear that they need to open up just in case they get into a shootout. And that's the only thing that you really want to be worried about.
Yeah, I think 2016 Atlanta Falcons, when I think, does this offense potentially have another gear? That would be epic if we could get into that type of a run. All right, Chris Royal coming in. Love the content you all put out. Rob, Jason, and Grant always killing it. Can't wait for Sunday. I'll be in Seattle to watch our team bring home the dub. You and me both, Chris. Reach out in the comments of this video. Let me know where you're going to be at. I want to kick it with some Niner faithful. I will probably be driving up solo. I don't have many Niner faithful with me here in Portland. All of my buds are down in the Bay Area or Southern California. So let me know where you're going to be at so that we can connect and celebrate that dub, or at least get ready for the dub that is about to happen when the 49ers bounce all over those Seattle Seahawks. All right, going into this one quickly, how do you see it breaking out? The 49ers had several players going down. Thankfully, the vast majority of them seem short-term. Quick rundown on them. Debo Samuel, groin injury, expected to miss this week. Could be 2 weeks. Fred Warner, hamstring, out this week. Hopefully back next. Dre Greenlaw, groin, day-to-day, so could play, but you could also see him missing considering he rushed back and tweaked it. Contavious Street, wrist, day-to-day. Marcel Harris is in the concussion protocol, as we mentioned earlier. Trey Sermon seems to be the most serious. It's an ankle sprain, but not the high ankle variety, but he still will be out a while, just hopefully not that 4 to 6 weeks that's typical of the high ankle sprain. To you, which of these injuries might be the hardest to overcome for the 49ers?
This is an easy answer. It's Fred Warner. And you just, that stability that you know, when Fred's in there, no matter what you want to say about what his season is like, in a game like this against the Seattle Seahawks, if this say this game was against the Indianapolis Colts, I might not be as worried. Right. But again, there's something to this whole Seattle 49ers thing that you need all hands on deck. And having Fred Warner there is a calming feeling for me. And no matter what, Fred has never played one bad game this season. So that's not if he's played solidly and that's not what you expected, that's a different story. But that sort of baseline that he's giving and he does at middle linebacker, that's the type of thing that you're going to need. And I think that leadership, because that stadium gets loud.
Yes,
and that leadership and being able to just calm everybody down, getting back to basics, all those things, that's the part that scares me the most. Can Fred keep everybody together? But Jimmy Ward's going to be there and have to be that guy this week in terms of all of those things. And he's smart enough and he's up to the task. I'm definitely about that. But It has to be all hands on deck. And like I said, Fred Warner is that calming presence in the middle that is just reliable. And that's the one thing, too, that makes this injury so disheartening. Fred doesn't miss games. And
No,
then
no, he does not.
of all the weeks, it's this one. And that's the thing that's my fear. Look, I love Azeez Al-Shaair, but again, you're not filling in for Fred Warner immediately like that. Like I've been singing his praises, but I definitely know that you can't just jump right in and be Fred Warner. So that would be my guess.
You nailed it. And that would have been my choice as well. I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate, but just to drive home those points that you mentioned, Seattle Stadium is so loud. For anyone watching that hasn't actually physically been there, it reverberates in your chest to a point where you feel like your heart is skipping beats. It is a weird phenomenon when you're in there and it goes off. And now you're talking about the quarterback of the defense having to make the play calls, having to get everybody into position. So that is going to be a tough assignment for Azeez. The other one that will be hard to replace is simply running back, because the 49ers may trust that going in with 3 healthy backs could be sufficient. You may get our third down back. Why is his name escaping me?
JaMycal Hasty?
Yeah, JaMycal Hasty. But you would think if that doesn't happen with Trenton Cannon being your special teams ace, that they would look to free agency. And there's just nobody left out there. That position has been so decimated. Are you going to go pick up Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, TJ Yeldon, maybe Chris Thompson? You could see that connection.
Duke Johnson.
With Shanahan. That would be fantastic. That's a fantasy sleeper whenever he's playing in a Shanahan offense. But that would be the only reason that it wouldn't be Fred Warner, is just who's available. All right, let's do our last topic and get you out of here, because you have a show starting in 4 minutes. So 3 minutes, we're getting you out. Defensive boost. With several people out, as we just went through, it's possible that D will be coming back and will be activated. He was potentially going to be activated against the Vikings. It didn't happen on Saturday. Do you think getting him back for a handful of snaps provides enough boost to get after Russell Wilson?
It has to. I mean, look, no disrespect to Arden Key, but having Arden Key be the second best pass rusher on this line was not how they drew this up. And I had sang the praises of this defensive line going into the season. Like, man, they're deep.
Yes.
This is a deeper bunch than 2019. May not reach the heights because obviously a Buckner can't be replaced. You know, Bosa and D Ford was at a different level in 2019. But I thought that they would always have a continuous fresh legs, group in there. I thought Ebukam was going to do a little bit more, but it has to. The one thing that you have to do, and this is the difference between Russ and Kyler in terms of what they do when the play breaks down or when they scramble. Kyler, what made it so successful in that first game and holding the Arizona Cardinals down for 17 points was when you create that pocket and you keep him in that pocket, he wants to bail. He doesn't want to climb the pocket and then bail, right? He just wants to bail. So when he has nowhere to bail, he can't look over those linemen, right? And then that's when things got hairy for him in that game. Well, now Russell Wilson does want to climb that pocket, and he does present a little bit more of a challenge, right? So that's the thing, is keeping the pressure on him, forcing him into those throws that he's been making lately and missing, in terms of easy reads, missing those, trying to be hero ball, force him into those things and keep the pressure on him. I know that this sounds cliche, but if D Ford can just offer just a little bit of a bump in pass rush, that's really the only thing this defense has been lacking, in my opinion. Because the linebackers have been solid. The secondary has played much better than I could have expected, especially when you told me Josh Norman was going to be playing this many games.
Right.
It's the pass rush more than anything. And if D Ford can be anything, a package of plays, 15, 20 plays, and if he can actually disrupt a little bit more and keep Russell Wilson in that pocket and force him into those bad throws, it's going to be a long day for him.
I see it breaking out similarly. If you can get 10 to 15 snaps, it's in that 15% of the defensive snaps on the field that are pass rushing snaps. If you get just a little bit of production that can complement what Charles Omenihu has flashed on 1 or 2 snaps, I do think that it's also imperative with Russell Wilson, to your point of the way in which he so skillfully climbs the pocket, that interior pressure is going to be really important in this game. I loved what I saw from Kevin Givens. I do love the fact that we are moving linemen around to get creative. Rushing Arden Key from the interior seems to be generating significantly greater pressures than having him on the edge. So let's just hope that getting D Ford back is the edge that we need, or that we don't need an edge and we whoop them pretty badly. on Sunday.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that. Well, Jason,
I'd love a game where we kind of rip their heart out at the end,
Wouldn't
but
that
I'd
be
also
great?
love to just destroy them, though. That would be amazing, though.
yes.
As well.
Yeah. Either way, a win or a win is fine by me.
There you
Jason, I know that you have a podcast to go to, Sprint Right Option. If you don't follow it, please do. Go over there and watch him right now. I appreciate you coming on, man. I had an absolute blast today. I look forward to trying to do it again in the future. And thank you to you. Thank you to the Niner faithful. And I will be back on Wednesday.
Appreciate
Take
you,
care,
Rob.
faithful.